Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Metallica entitled 72 Seasons. This would normally be the part of the review where I would tell you a little bit about the band in question, but I don't feel as if I need to do that today, because the band in question is fucking Metallica. Like, chances are, if you have eyes and ears, and if you have used them to observe heavy metal in any capacity over the course of the past 4 decades, then you already know that Metallica are one of the most famous, successful, and influential metal bands of all time. Like, even my mom, who hates metal and almost exclusively listens to Celine Dion, Disney movie soundtracks, and top 40 pop radio, even she knows who Metallica are. Even she knows what makes them so unique and special, and even she can name quite a few of their hits. Obviously, with Metallica being so massive and so popular, everything they do is immediately treated as the biggest deal ever, and this latest studio album, 72 Seasons, is no exception whatsoever. Inarguably one of the most anticipated albums of 2023, and that anticipation has only continued to build and climb as Metallica have continued to release more promo singles in advance of this album's release. Personally, I've been kind of so-so on a lot of those singles, but I've remained relatively pumped and excited because, well, again, it's fucking Metallica. Like, Master of Puppets was one of the first CDs I ever bought with my own money. I love Metallica, warts and all. And while love is a pretty strong term to apply to 72 Seasons right now, I will say, warts and all, I'm actually enjoying this album much more than I thought I was going to. Is it a genre-defining masterpiece on par with Ride the Lightning and Justice for All, the Black Album, and the aforementioned Master of Puppets? No, absolutely not. But it is, for the most part, genuinely fun, full of youth and vigor, and probably some of the most consistency and cohesion I've seen out of Metallica since the 90s. One thing I immediately appreciate about this album, more so than anything else though, is the album's concept. Metallica are reflecting on their lives, dealing with personal demons, childhood trauma, and a slew of mental health issues. As James Hetfield writes, 72 seasons, the first 18 years of our lives that form our true or false selves. The concept that we were told who we are by our parents. A possible pigeonholing around what kind of personality we are. I think the most interesting part of this is the continued study of those core beliefs and how it affects our perception of the world today. Much of our adult experience is reenactment or reaction to these childhood experiences, prisoners of childhood or breaking free of those bondages we carry. There's a level of emotional vulnerability and honesty here that we're just not used to seeing from older metal bands, and it genuinely does a really good job at tying everything together and making 72 Seasons feel very poignant and urgent. Sometimes corny, edgy, mediocre lyricism and some forced rhyming schemes do get in the way of everything, but for the most part, you're still feeling a good chunk of that weight and that heart. And very wisely, Metallica take advantage of this lyrical trip back to the days of their youth by also taking a musical trip back to the days of their youth. Lux Eterna, for instance, is a short but sweet little blast of late 70s, early 80s hard rock and heavy metal nostalgia, wearing a lot of Diamond Head and Motorhead worship on its sleeve. It's loud and punchy, and it has a really good variety of, like, vintage metal riffery. The kind of stuff I'm used to hearing from Metallica on very early records like Kill 'Em All. Too Far Gone also lightly drapes some Misfits influence over a steady, chunky heavy metal banger with some more punky riffs and percussive assaults and a kind of, like, hopeless lyricism that I would expect of the Misfits. And the album's closing number, Enamorata, borrows a page from the Book of Black Sabbath with some slower, moodier grooves, some smart progressions, and some super smooth and bluesy bass licks. Outside of that stuff, it's more or less the same old song and dance for Metallica. This feels musically very much in line with 2016's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, although I will say this is probably a more consistent album in quality from start to finish. It doesn't have as many duds, and I don't feel like it takes as long to get to some of the bigger hits. Tracks like Room of Mirrors and Shadows Follow, for instance, are sharp, potent, melodic thrash ragers, whereas tracks like You Must Burn and Crown of Barbed Wire are slower, bulkier, heftier, more muscular, more edgy and dramatic. As per the norm with nearly everything Metallica has done since the 90s, there's definitely a bit of fat and filler and bloat here. There are some songs that just don't really go anywhere that interesting, like its title track, 72 Seasons. Some songs that just take too long to get interesting, like If Darkness Had a Sun and Sleepwalk My Life Away. In general, I feel like a lot of the songs would really benefit from having at least a minute's worth of chewy fat being trimmed and cut right off. I also think the production is just kind of flat. There aren't a lot of dynamics here, and the overall sound is very atypical of what I would expect from, like, modern rock and heavy metal music. One upside to this production is that we can actually finally hear Rob Trujillo in the forefront of the sound. Like, even outside of the aforementioned Inamorata, his bass lines are pretty prominent throughout, and he even gets the chance to contribute some backing vocals. Finally, Metallica giving this man something to do. Fucking finally. James's vocals are solid for the most part. Sometimes his voice does sound a little gravelly on some of these slower and moodier cuts, but for the most part, his voice is strong, clear, and confident. Honestly, I'm feeling an enthusiastic 3 out of 5, leaning slightly towards a 3.5 out of 5. I went into this feeling like I was going to be bored. I went into this feeling like, maybe there'd be a couple bops, but Metallica were mostly going to waste my time. Instead, I've got something that does have, like, legitimate energy and heart to it. Metallica went into some darker places emotionally and lyrically, and they put together quite a few ragin', bangy, gnarly bops here and there. Yes, it's still a Metallica album, and the usual complaints about filler and production and song and album length all remain, but for the most part, I would still argue this is Metallica's most cohesive and consistent offering from start to finish since the Black Album. I feel like this is going to end up being a very divisive album. I've already seen a wide range of reactions from a wide range of people. Rolling Stone, Kerrang, and Classic Rock all gave this a 4 out of 5. Rolling Stone specifically went out of their way to call this one of Metallica's best offerings yet. Critics in general seem to be liking this. It's clocked in at a 76 on Metacritic. I was at a 72 Seasons record release and listening party at Sonic Boom the other night. Everyone there, for the most part, seemed to be really enjoying it. But then I hop on the Discord, and it seemed the reaction across multiple servers was this thing is mid, or this thing is just bad. And Metal Trenches specifically even called me out for daring to suggest that this thing might be better by Death Magnetic, saying that I was high. Wherever you find you land on the Metallica fan or hater spectrum, I don't think there's any denying that at the end of the day, Metallica made a Metallica album, for better or for worse. I still enjoyed it despite its numerous flaws, and while I wouldn't recommend this over something like Master of Puppets or Injustice for All, I don't see any harm whatsoever in checking it out. A solid 3 out of 5. Honestly, it's decent. It's pretty solid. For realsies, guys. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown e-fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.